And we're here. Excellent. What's going on, guys? It is Zerilath Eternal, and we are here to Bock and roll. Terrible, I know. I'm gonna change the thumbnail on this one. That's just kind of like the default thumbnail. Uh, that is basically my channel's wallpaper. I want to change the wallpaper too. This was an early like AI art commission that I tried out for free. And I said, oh, it's kind of interesting with the blue and the gold and the swirly central effect. I left it extraordinarily abstract, right? It's like, you know, this thing we call AI is a large language model, and if you don't know how to fucking use your words, it doesn't know how to give you what you want. Um, which makes you wonder what's going on with all the fucking creepypasta AI. Whatever the fuck they're doing with the creepypasta AI. I mean, like, how do you describe to artificial intelligence to render these weird amorphisms? You know, this is like some amazing, like, Lovecraftian level psychosis. Like, this is like beautiful Lovecraftian level psychosis. The unnervingness of looking at these things, right? And then like I have like I ain't gonna lie, I kind of like some of these liminal space exploration videos, that someone puts together. It's a first person perspective, surrealist level speed, um, very dreamy, uh, nightmarish in a way, off-putting, and then like you're largely in an empty place, but there's something in there. You just know that you know you somehow know it would make no sense that you would be alone, and thus your imagination is just like, where are all the people that this enormous nihilist repetition of a place, like, where are the people whom it serves? It can't all be to serve me. This is the kind of the crazy shit that is um, the crazy shit that is the liminal space stuff when I think about it. I'm the weird guy that's trying to articulate this thing, that people don't know what they're looking at, right? I'm the guy that thinks I might be able to describe what you're looking at, right? Because you're looking at an abstraction, right? And it depends on your relationship with the right side of your brain in order to do that. It is my relationship with my right side of my brain which has given me my mental talents, and which involve the epiphanies that I come to doing streams like this. So we're gonna rock and roll for maybe 2 hours or so. I am going to be on for a short period of time tonight on Stephanie Forcier's channel. She's gonna give me an actual reading, like a live time, like reading on the air, and like I'm one of like two people that are going to be there for um I guess like the hour. So I'm looking forward to that. um I'll try and remember to post it when I go. Anyway, so yeah, so we are going to give this a shot. I screened this, and there's no funny business in it at all. In fact, this is quite with the exception of lighting, in some places, it's a decent production. There's an interview happening with with what seems like a professional woman. Uh, 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 this is what I breezed over with this one. So that would obviously be, I would assume, I was looking at Mariet Wijnen, and a few different speakers are in here, including Michelle Merrill, uh, whom I believe does want to come on the show. I am going to have to contact him. I did this on blast. I didn't even put this in the Box Saga group. I didn't even put this in Greyhorn Pagans because I wanted to get this done before I went on with Stephanie. So let's have at it.
The Bock Saga, an amazing story about the origin and evolution of mankind. The Scandinavian countries are full of sagas and mythologies. So has Finland, for instance, the Kalevala. And the Kalevala was written in the 16th century after it was collected by somebody, because the material for the Kalevala comes from generation to generation, the stories, the songs, and everything relates to that old heathen time of which not so much is known. Then also in Scandinavia, in Copenhagen, they have in the museum the so-called Edda, which again talks about this heathen time, and it relates about the gods and the heroes. And stories both from the Edda and the Kalevala, they are a little bit the same. They have the same kind of figures, and if you want, you can make some kind of story out of it. Now, the newest on the area of Scandinavian mythologies is called the Bock saga. And this is fascinating right from the beginning, because this Bock saga is not written down. Up to today, there is no written recordings of this story. It lives in the mind of one single man, a Finnish guy called Bock. And this Bock, since 1984, he is talking almost daily, story after story, a mix of mythology, of symbolic language, of what he says, history, and he blends it to such an amazing unity that I decided to go and visit him. He lives outside of Helsinki in a place called Gumbostrand. At Mr. Bock's residence, and I have a chance to talk with Michel Merle, who's here, and who has been talking a lot about this Bock saga. Actually, I call him a specialist, although you say you're not a specialist. I find you a real specialist. Uh-huh. And I wanted to ask you, how did you get to know this Bock saga? How did you find out about it?
It's called Bock saga, or Wijnen mythology. It is a mythology that still exists in Finland, and it specifically relates to Uudenmaa, which is one province still existing today in the south of Finland. We are now in that area. And I have one friend here who I met many years ago, in 1975. And we have been meeting each other regularly, traveling together. And in 1984, shortly before his mother died, he had the right from the family to start to open this subject, Wijnen mythology or Bock saga.
And that's your Bock you're talking about?
Yeah.
And this saga, I know it takes you probably a lifetime to really find out, but could you try to very shortly condense, say, like about which time this saga talks, for instance, and
Yeah.
just the big headlines.
The Bock saga or Wijnen mythology is based on the sound of the root language, the language which is still spoken in the archipelago in front of Uudenmaan, this province in the south part of Finland. It's a language which we today call Swedish language, but it's actually not Swedish. The Swedish, they sing the sounds of the root language, whereas the root-speaking people speak the same like you and I speak. This root language consists of 29 sounds, where every sound has a meaning. And it is our language by itself which basically tells this mythology. It's a very long story, like you say.
Just to make it more clear that by really understanding this root language, you automatically start to understand the saga?
No. The saga is different, of course. I mean, we don't have any information relating to this saga because it has never been written. It has been orally transferred within this family. And of course there has been one time in the history when we have been living according to the mythology, like we still find so many mythologies all over the planet. All of the mythologies that exist today on the planet, they are all based, according to this story, on Wijnen mythology. The mythology which still exists here in Finland, and is one mythology that deals with the time, or starts before ice time, when all this bowl was tropical, and it tells about the nature, it tells about how the nature come into existence, how the human being appear in this nature, and how how we in one breathing system spread out over all this planet, over all this bowl, and start to populate it according to one system. And this whole system, this whole story is based on the sounds of this root language, this language which holds the key to all this story.
So actually it is the story of the beginning of mankind, so to say.
Yes, it starts with that.
And never anything was written down about it.
No.
And so the only source of information is your Bock.
Today, yes. But it has been spread, of course, since 1984, so we have been creating one main line of this story. And there we, in one short form, start to get, in one logical order, one idea of...
So I got a good question as I'm thinking about this particular thing, right? Because I like this introduction that Michelle is giving to this journalist, right? This is whether she's always a journalist, I don't know anything about her. This is journalism as is, right? And so knowing that this knowledge, which is a challenge to so many narratives, right? Like, effectively the rabbis are the, quote, gatekeepers, right? They're the ones in the Bock saga that are trying to keep the connection between the world and the original royal family together. Because apparently we've had that connection for millions of years. The Bock saga covers millions of years in what is, what was a incredibly slow process, longer process, right? With beings that were a proto-human type, because I think that there's a lot that is unsaid about human physiology when we were just out the gate from Ra and Maya, right? Or at least out the gate from any of the 12 under Ra and Maya, effectively. There's this aspect of soul power, and I think it makes sense to me. I think what's missing in the story is that we're meant to walk a different path. This is what I'm seeing, right? It's like we're walking a crooked path, right? And as we walk the crooked path, the earth tilts on a crooked axis, right? And we have a hard time calibrating for this twist in the manner in which we conduct our lives that we used to know on a very primordial level only a few thousand years ago. So mankind's mankind's strife over the last 10,000 years has been conditioned into how they ended up working to survive with this ultimate pole shift. Right? And so the rabbis were set up as the connective tissue. And the question is, who is so, evil to suppress stories? Like, why do we listen to like some officialized critic? It's just like there's a lot of people in the world. And, we let these critics of these stories pop off. And we accept their answer, and we don't judge their standards. And it's just like, you listened to, like, what, an hour or two of it? Right? It's just, I'm a very busy man and a professional, and look at me. Right? And so what he really means is that it's not my job to gather the argument. You need to bring the argument to me. He's sitting as a judge, right? He's sitting in a judge's position, understandably so, right? I got a lot of Libra energies, so I can sit in a judgely position myself, right? You got to bring your fucking argument to me. It's the same thing with AI. It's just like if you don't understand the language model you're working with, you're going to use the wrong vernacular and get the wrong answer. And you may want to choose a different AI that's trained to know different words and different ways of searching for information on the internet. So anyway, long story short is, are all the rabbis evil? Are all the rabbis ignorant? Are all the rabbis on ego trips? Are all the rabbis good people who are just as foolish as we are? You see all the different possibilities, right? You can paint that picture any way you want. This is what a lot of writers, storytellers do, and that's an important element that we care about in the world is motivations, right? Some of the biggest criticism of the writing of storytelling nowadays is criticism of people's motivations. We don't understand the motivations of the rabbis yet, right? Because there isn't too much explanation of every little motivation, right? So, you're two. You got two heads. You're two different guys looking at your information, and you're rubbing them together, right? It's kind of a Nothies situation. I'm rubbing my idea against yours until we enlighten somebody. So anyway, let's get back on this track.
This is what we call paradise time, when all this planet was still tropical, how we moved to ice time, and how we have continued after ice time up to the present day. All this mythology talks about this time.
So before the ice time, this was tropical.
Yes.
This area where we are now.
Where we are now was tropical. Because this area, or Woedenma, is actually one ring land. The center point is in the mythology called Hell, or it's, to be more specific, it is on 7 islands in front of Hell. Hell is what is today called Helsinki, and in front of there are still today the 7 islands, on which of the center island called Oudensö is the middle point of Woedenma. From there you can go about 125, 130 kilometers west to one place called Hanko, one peninsula, and from there, taking the center point of this Oudensö, this Ouden island, you can make one ring, and that creates Oudenma.
And that Oudenma, as you told me before, that was the country where paradise was, where people lived in a certain system, and from there, according to that system, spread out over the rest of the world.
Yeah, so actually the whole world was paradise, or the whole planet, we should say, was paradise. Paradise time is the tropical time on this planet, so it's the time before the ice time, when this specific point, this island in the center of Oudenma, was the North Pole. So we had North Pole and South Pole going in a straight line down, and this ball turning around this pole, traveling around the sun, which made that all this ball was tropical. The North Pole had 24-hour light, the South Pole had 24-hour light, but in that time the South Pole was in the water, somewhere in the Pacific, and when you come to the equator you have 12 hours light and 12 hours dark.
Oh, and this is because the Earth, which is round, makes a different movement than it does nowadays.
Yeah, so in that time the pole was straight, North Pole, South Pole, and this ball turning around, but this time this ball is turning in this way around its axle. So we get ice time when the Earth axle shifted.
How is it possible that your book has this information? How did he hear about it? Was there any books he could read, or?
No.
See, right there. That's the most absolute question, right? That's where the rubber meets the road, right? And it's also part of remembering that there's history and mythology wrapped together, right? And as long as you're telling the story in this kind of mythological way, it's a fair way of an oral tradition of telling history, because it universally reminds you that there's so many details that are not fair to cover, but this gives you such a clear description of the meta situation, right? This is the meta situation of what has happened to human civilization, right? And this could still be, and I think is part of what it is that it's still not the whole story. Even if we've got all the answers to all the most important questions in the threads about the Illuminati stuff and the 13 royal bloodline stuff, because that's all in there. But there's interferences to their world that don't wholly make sense. And um, and the manner in which uh, other mythologies have panned out, especially the ones that have some semi-alien vibe to them, like ant people, right? It is straight up as a mythological fact, and they just don't talk about it that much, but it's coming out more and more now, is that there's a lot of like petroglyphic type things in Mesoamerica, all over Mesoamerica, of the ant people. The Hopi talk about the ant people and stuff like that, and they're the Greys. They're effectively like the Greys, but they're spirits. They got these wispy legs like ghosts, right? And they all seem to be largely depicted in helpful. They seem like they're on the helpful scale of things. So theoretically benevolent. Perhaps they are akin to a certain kind of like elf folk, perhaps. I don't know. There's a lot. There's probably so many tribes that are semi-lost in the original knowledges. I mean, we all know what happened to their writing system and what was left of their quote literature. With the Popol Vuh and all that. There's a lot of stuff that was just fucking lost. Crazy lost.
It is an oral tradition which has been kept within this family, so he get this story from his father and his mother, or through his mother and his mother's sister. It is a tradition which has been kept in this family after Udenma became destroyed, which happened in 24/7, the year 1050, when Finland became a part of Sweden and a part of the new information system that arrived on the planet. In that way, these people couldn't anymore talk about this time before 1050, which we refer to as the hidden time, because now we are living under a new information system where he was not allowed to talk about the hidden time, so they transferred.
Hey, look, I'll also say this much about the Bock saga. We can talk about, like, why do we have, like, if somebody says, I got a Navajo elder over here, and he's going to tell you about the prophecy, right? It's just like, if they're an elder, you at least are going to fucking respect it, right? You're gonna at least, like, oh man, like, this is a guy who's been, like, it's confirmed, they follow his lineage and they know his history, and yeah, it's legit that he studied this way and that he's gone through these rituals and that he's been doing these kinds of ceremonies for years and years and years, and he knows his shit, right? And so there's a whole thing that gives you a spiritually true credential, right? And so Native American elders is something that is preserved, a good legit thing. It's one of the important security measures that are honored with some of our reservation treaties. Okay? So, this is akin to those kinds of stories, but it doesn't have that support structure. And that's because of Finland's unfortunate circumstances, because of what happened in 1050 or so. The Roman proxy war that sacked the kingdom and cut the Bock family from the Finnish royal family.
This knowledge within the family from generation to generation to generation without to ever write it down. But it is based on the principle of the root language, where every sound has a meaning. So when you know these 29 sounds with their meaning, it's not so difficult in that way to keep the story in the brain and keep it originally, because you can't change the meaning of the sound. You change the meaning of one sound and the whole story collapses.
So actually the meaning of this alphabet was the guarantee that the story somehow stayed the same?
Yes.
Wow, that's really amazing. And you say in the ice time there was lots of ice here. How did people survive in that time?
When the Earth axle of this bowl shifts about 30 degrees, it was one big catastrophe that was happening, of course, in that time, which makes that enormous amount of water then come out from the ocean and move in the atmosphere, where they collect at both poles through the rotation of the Earth and come down in the form, this water then comes down in the form of ice and cover the north part of this bowl from the Pyrenees, Alps, Black Sea, Caspian Sea, Mongolia, going over to northern Japan,
Hold on a second. I got to hear that back because that information was important to me, and I needed to end it here. All right, 11:22. That should be far enough back.
To talk about the heathen time, so they transferred this knowledge within the family from generation to generation to generation without to ever write it down. But it is based on the principle of the root language, where every sound has a meaning. So when you know these 29 sounds with their meaning, it's not so difficult in that way to keep the story in the brain and keep it originally, because you can't change the meaning of the sound. You change the meaning of one sound and the whole story collapses.
So actually the meaning of this alphabet was the guarantee that the story somehow stayed the same?
Yes.
Wow, that's really amazing. And you say in the ice time there was lots of ice here. How did people survive in that time?
When the Earth axle of this bowl shifts about 30 degrees.
Okay, so you heard what he said there. He said 30 degrees, right? So the Ice Age would have been the 30-degree pole shift. Now we have the seasons as such, because now we're about 23 and a half, right? So that 7.5 degrees is the only thing protecting us from the ice Jotun taking over the north again. 7, that's it. That's all it takes is 7.5 fucking degrees of bullshit.
It was one big catastrophe that was happening, of course, in that time, which makes that enormous amount of water then come out from the ocean and move in the atmosphere, where they collect at both poles through the rotation of the Earth and come down.
Hold on. Okay, so hold on. That's the point. Like this thing he's talking about where the ice comes out. I want to get a clearer answer on that.
It makes that enormous amount of water then come out.
Yeah, it makes an enormous amount of water come out. Hold on a second. That's what I'm missing the context of. Sorry, guys. I must not walk away from this answer.
And you say in the ice time there was lots of ice here. How did people survive in that time?
When the Earth axle of this bowl shifts about 30 degrees, it was one big catastrophe that was happening, of course, in that time, which makes that enormous amount of water then come out from the ocean and move in the atmosphere, where they collect at both poles through the rotation of the Earth and come down in the form, this water then comes down in the form of ice and cover the north part of this bowl from the Pyrenees, Alps, Black Sea, Caspian.
Okay, sorry about that. Now I understand. Okay, I got it now. So, the violent shift within that 90-day period, the centrifugal force of Earth's orbit and rotation or whatever, most of the water fucking goes up into the goddamn atmosphere. right? You know, like this isn't like, because the air pressure is fucking wonky as fuck, right? That's what's going on. And so these gather points at the poles, and then it would have then, as the conditions would have, I suppose, stabilized and the temperatures took over. We're talking about like that. We're not talking about clouds. We're talking about, well, fuck. We're talking about waters above, aren't we? Aren't we talking about waters above? Now, when we translate Genesis, that the world was a waste and a desolation. Welcome to waste and desolation. Welcome to Genesis 1. Ragnarok is Genesis 1.
You can see Mongolia going over to northern Japan, San Francisco, New York, about this line, back to the Pyrenees, how this area become...
Now here's the funny thing, that's Genesis 1, right? But the order, because that's Ragnarok, because the Garden of Eden, when it's created, that's created pre-Genesis. Right? These four rivers were here before, right? It was part of the structure of the earth in the paradise time.
Covered with ice. Also the South Pole become covered with ice, and the mountains become covered with ice on this planet. But because there is a natural phenomena that originates in the Gulf of Mexico, the hot Gulf Stream coming across the Atlantic, hitting the north coast of France, going through the English Channel between England and Holland into the Gulf of Oslo. From there it rebounds and goes southeast to between where is today Denmark and Sweden, and hits the north coast of Germany. And from there it rebounds again and shoots straight northeast into the Finnish Gulf, to that place where today is Leningrad. And there all this hot water traveling from the Gulf of Mexico can't go any further. It becomes locked within this Finnish Gulf and starts to turn around itself, create one rosette of hot water, which made that this area, Oudenma, remained ice-free. So the people could survive within one hole in the ice. They were surrounded by mountain of ice which stretched to the north part of this bowl, to where today is North Pole and the other side, and south to the Alps and the Pyrenees. So they become completely locked off from these people who are what we call tropical people, who live from the Mediterranean and south in all directions.
Wow. So they could continue living here, and then they were living according to what you said before, this breeding system. Can you explain what that means?
Now for that it's more easy when we go back to before ice time. Before ice time we had one system of how we create people, how we populate this bowl, and it was based on one breeding system that started here in Oudenma. In Oudenma is one ringland where live two castes of people, and outside of Oudenma live people in the form of, we can say, tribes in other ringlands that consist of three castes of people. The highest caste we call Piru Et. Et means family, and Piru is the head of this family. And this Pirouette consists of one father and one mother who create 12 sons and 7 daughters. The first son becomes Seppo Ilmarinen, he becomes the king, and the first daughter is called Maya, and she is the queen. Both of them represent moon. The 12th son...
Okay, so if I understand that correctly, it sounds like the Pirouette family isn't even in charge. They just breed the royal family that goes into that tribe. So they are the breeders that breed the king. Right? So this is kind of, in keep with the top system, right? Because that would have them as kind of like the vicar of Frey and Freya, right? Because you have Frey and Freya as the as your fertility god, your high fertility god, and they're not involved in the affairs of their children at all, but they are the seed, and there are certain genetic rules, but those are genetic rules, and everything is kind of like in a certain natural, self-evident kind of way, right? Because these were simpler times. You know, there was no problem with how a thing was done. You know, there wasn't much going on in the manner of a person's being too inherently challenged by many a thing, right? This is the whole bit with, you know, why it is so expensive to be in tropical places. There's just something inherently like, oh, just let me be there. Worst comes to worst, I can just grab a banana off a fucking wild tree. Right? How do you starve in paradise when you've got too much shit just growing in the jungle? Just there, like, you can eat it. Just watch out for the stingers.
When he becomes 27 years old, he gets the title Lemminkainen. And now he is the one who is making the children. So the 7th daughter and the first 11 son, they don't make any children. Only the 12th son makes children. So now this Lemminkainen, when he becomes 27 years old, he goes together with the most healthy and beauty woman on the planet, and she gets the title Swan. She becomes the Swan, or in Finnish language, Joutsen. And now from 27, this Lemminkainen and this Joutsen make again 12 son and 7 daughter. The first son, Seppo Ilmarinen.
That first word sounded almost like sword. And for her to be a sword, it made me immediately think of the Queen of Swords. I almost want to say that this is where the Queen of Swords comes from. Almost. Maybe. At least as a word. As a thought.
The first daughter, Maya, king and queen, who don't make children. And again the 12th son, Lemminkainen, who when he becomes 27 years old, again goes together with the most healthy and beautiful woman on the planet. And from her again come 12 son and 7 daughter. So in this way, this family perpetuates itself. Now when this former Lemminkainen retires because his 12th son becomes 27 years old, the former Lemminkainen becomes Ukko, and the former Joutsen, she becomes Akka. So in this family we talk about Ukko and Akka, which are the...
Alright, so right there. That's the kind of thing I've been needing to hear, and if I've missed it in other ones, I've caught it in this one now. The title transference, which is also the name of the god. This has been my fucking point. That I believe that what Snorri Sturluson was trying to say through his Christian lens is that here, in terms of some sort of genealogy, and that this would have been like, it would have been the way they would have done it, but they got lumped into the problem of biblical mythology, right? But the point is that they make Odin out to be a descendant of one of Noah's sons, right? This is where Odin is coming from one of the ones that went to the west, right? He's one of the western sons. This is a semi-truth that Odin was a ancestor, right? Yeah, this is what we're talking about, right? So this is the place where mythology matters with the personification of the gods to have us understand a deeply profound, archaic, primordial memory of our ancestral history. At least the largest of these notes that matter. That's what I was looking for.
Father and the mother, the first son and the first daughter, Seppo and Maya, the 12th son with his swan, Lemminkainen and Joutsen, and there is two more figures, Sampo and Aino. Sampo masculine, Aino feminine, Frey and Freya in root language, Seppo and Maya in Baan language. Now this Lemminkainen is not only making children with swan, he is also making children with what we call Disa, or stem mother. Now when Lemminkainen is making Disa pregnant, there come out four possibilities. Either it's a boy or it's a girl. If it's a boy and he is good to be father, he is called Rabi. And if he is not good to be father, he is called one Nar. He is in the information system. If it's a girl and she is good to be a mother, she becomes a new Disa, who in the future, again with Lemminkainen, is making Rabi, Nar, Disa, or when she is not good to be mother, she becomes Sienere. She becomes in the information system on the female side. Now, this...
See, what did he say? Siedor? Would that be like a Seith witch? Is that what he's saying? Like the Seith witches are not good mothers? Is that the idea? Interesting. I'd have to get a verification on what I think I heard him say, right? Because he's, there's very precise pronunciations that are going on here for clarity, but accents are accents, and context of language also, right? 1989. Certainly, you're hoping the Americans hear this, but you're probably knowing that you're talking to a lot of English as second language for the European media market, is probably what you're really thinking in 1989.
Is a second class of people called Rousset. So we have now Pirouette and Rousset, who we call Aser, who live inside Oudenma, who speak root language. Now this Aser, they start to create what we call Baner, people who live outside of Oudenma, in the ringlands surrounding Oudenma, going over all this planet. And these ringlands
Oh, so, and also, as you could see, like, as he said, the rabbis are fathers, right? So, and this is quite literal, this is part and parcel of why there was a bit of a problem with the Catholic Church and the question at the time of Vatican II or something about whether they could be fathers. Can they be devoted to family and devoted to God and so on and so forth, right? And that, it's an interesting question. It really depends on what that's deeply rooted in a larger gender question. That is deeply rooted in a larger question of any good purpose for the fucking clergy as a thing. Why is the clergy a thing? And what does it mean for people who take that thing fucking seriously?
Consists of three classes of people, Yaal-et, Kaal-et, and Trail-et. Now the Rabbi is going out from Oudenma to one ringland, and now the Rabbi is making children with the Yaal-et woman. And now from Rabbi and Yaal woman, is coming out one boy or one girl, which will be either one.
Okay, so a yal et, right? So the rabbi is with, I guess, the with Piru's family. The rabbi breeds with a daughter of Piru, a Piruet. And these are the kinds of children, right? And so this is why we have this whole thing with like all these people that by blood are related to all these leaders, why all the leaders are related to each other. They're all fucking like half-brothers and cousins through the rabbis.
Yal man or one Yal woman in the future. Now this Yal man, he is again making children with Kar woman. And from this Yal man and Kar woman is coming out either one boy or one girl, one Kal man or one Kal woman in the future. And now this Kal man, in his turn, is making children with Trail woman. And from Kal man and Trail woman is coming out either one Trail boy or one Trail girl. Now the Trail boy, they didn't have right to make children, so there it stopped. So in that way we get 5 classes of people, Piruet, Ruset, inside Udenma, and Yalet, Kalet, Trailet, outside Udenma, where every Trail man or woman could say that my father is one Kar. Every Kar man and woman could say my father is one Yal. Every Yal man and woman could say my father is one Rabbi. And the Rabbi, he could say that he is the son of Lemminkainen through Disa. So in that way we had one Allfather. We had one man who was father to all people on the planet through this swan, who we call in the mythology Matar also. Ma means earth and Tar means the woman. So she is the earth mother. So through the earth mother we were, and Ukko, the father.
Okay, so that's an etymological relationship between matter and mother, matter, and tar, I think he said, right? And then tar, you can play with that with tor and root and rot, so on and so forth.
We were all people in one system coming from one original sperm.
So it was all totally arranged by birth or by judgment of the group, so to say, whether you could be a father or a mother.
Yeah, it was the highest thing you could be in the heathen time, was for one man to be father and for one woman to be mother. But we had to go through one procedure which is going according to all kinds of nature phenomena, which create the situation whether you was really good enough to be father or to be mother.
Do you think this breeding system really existed, or is it just a story?
No, I think it really existed. It is the only... The story talks about such an enormous time span that it is the only realistic way that we still can be in life today. I think otherwise we would have been dying out already a long time ago.
Why do you think that? If people would have gotten children spontaneous, without rules and without the right by birth, do you think it would have been different?
Yeah, because this story starts with the beginning, and the beginning is that we are getting one man and one woman on the planet in the creation of the human being, and that from this man and this woman, this Sampo and this Aino, this Frey and Freya, we are getting from them all other people on the planet. Now everybody in that way is born from the sperm of this Frey or this Sampo through this Aino. So if there would go something wrong with that original sperm that existed from where all people are born, they had of course to take care of it. And there is one enormous story explaining that side, that how, in which way they took care of the sperm, how they respected it, so that we had in one natural, logical way the possibility to continue as one race of human being on the planet.
So this whole system of I always forget the name, this Lemminkainen,
yes.
Lemminkainen, that from there lots of children were born and lots of new families or new rings were formed outside of this Udenma. What I found fascinating to hear is that your Bock says that in all this time, all these people who lived outside of Udenma, that from time to time they would come back here to the big temple of Lemminkainen, of the figure Lemminkainen, and bring their valuables and all the aesthetics, as he calls it, to chambers, and that these chambers actually exist today, that they can be found.
Yes, after he started with the story in 1984, he started to create the foundation to the story, this main line of the story, and from there we come to the year 1987 when he had the right to start to open this what is called Lemminkainen Temple.
I'm going to pause right here for a second because she moved on with the question. And so it was like a change of subject, right? So she didn't know, like 1989 asking this question about the breeding program, whether it existed. You know, that's going into the uncomfortable, like that's where all of the crazy conversation goes, right? So that you know, the humans needed time to be properly introduced conceptually to what's really being said, because it's asking you to look at our past a certain way, but also there's a little bit of an implication of, because the story is so neutral and almost assumed all is good, meaning it would be good to live this way again, to live exactly this way again. And I've talked about this over and over again on my discussions of the Bock saga, is that, like, none of us are here because we're endorsing living exactly that way again, but I think, at the very least, knowing it and making the best choices for ourselves is the actual right way to go. And that's been the consensus, right? It's just that, like, right then and there is just like, we weren't being honest with ourselves yet that that's a point of contention, right? Where it's the unspoken level of disagreement where I'm sure it loses a lot of it. It's taken forever. Who would care about this story from Finland? It took the pagan revival for anybody to give a fuck about this story because of what it inherently is.
Right, according to what the family told him.
Yes, it is one temple that is closed in the year 987. And 987 it was said that Bock, who lives after 1,000 years, he has the right to open this temple. Now that happens to be evil. He can't do nothing for that. He has to go take out this information as it has been transferred within his family. So from 1987 we have been starting to reopen Lemminkainen Temple, which was sealed in the year 987. This temple is one creation from before ice time, where the people in these different ringlands that exist around the planet, in appreciation for this Allfather, or this system of creating the people on the planet, were making the most beautiful handicraft or aesthetic, where the most beautiful of the objects they created in their specific ringlands were sent up to Udenma in appreciation for this system during the lifetime of one Lemminkainen. Now we get many Lemminkainens in this system, and every time when one Lemminkainen becomes Ukko, when he becomes Wijnen, when his 12th son is taking over his job, all these objects become sent from these different ringlands to the next Lemminkainen. They become sent.
You know what's really interesting? That it's the 12th son, right? So we've got it flipped right now. We put the prince is the firstborn. The firstborn is the first in line to the throne. Not the youngest when dad's retiring, right? So that's an interesting way that it works, because you've got not just the long reign of the king, you also have the long understudy of the youngest son, who also would not have known anything that happened, to his older brothers and their witness of what that king was doing. It's such an interesting system, and just trying to imagine the social, psychological dynamic of that culture, and how it works, and if it works in a way that you could sit there and like, is it possible to have a Game of Thrones romantic relationship with this world, right? Can you look at it and close your eyes and say, my God, take me to paradise, right? And then you get the papaya fruit, but then you get all the weird incest too. Incest and papaya, anybody? Welcome to the Bock saga.
To the castle of Ra and Maya in Rasapuri, which is about 80-90 kilometers west of Helsinki. Today you can still see the ruins. And from this castle they bring these objects, when this new period of Lemminkainen starts, to this Lemminkainen temple, where they are creating one chamber for each Lemminkainen, where they are putting in this most beautiful handicraft aesthetic, what has been sent up in appreciation for him, and now it becomes put in Lemminkainen temple. And in front of the door to this chamber they are putting one life-size statue from this Lemminkainen. And now it continues the second period, and they make another room, and a third room, and a fourth room, and a fifth room. So slowly in the paradise time, before ice time, they create this Lemminkainen temple here in the south of Finland, about 30 kilometers east from Helsinki.
And so this temple, according to the saga, was cut out of granite inside of Uudella.
Yeah, it is constructed within the bedrock. We have the natural phenomena from the middle to the south part of Finland, going over to Estonia, east direction Leningrad, west direction Stockholm. That whole this area is out of massive granite. So here they had the possibility, because there are no earthquakes in this area, no volcanoes, there is the physical possibility was existing for them to, within this massive granite, create this Lemminkainen temple.
But what material did they have? How could they do it? I mean, granite, you need dynamite or something like that.
No, you can. It's made by hand. This whole temple is made by hand. But you can crack granite by using fire and water. There are all kinds of systems of how you can work within the rock, no? So I'm sure that we will find out about how they exactly did it when we are opening this temple, because it's one subject what we have not really been talking about.
All right, so right there, he has, in 1989, he has this is the Bock saga, to his recollections, best idea, the idea of the advanced stone shaping technology, right? Because what we know for sure is is that there was once advanced stone shaping technology that was used for all this stuff, right? Because her statement doesn't just apply to Lemminkainen Temple, it applies to Stonehenge, it applies to the pyramids, it applies to all sorts of shit, right? So, fire and water, right? Yeah, like elemental stuff. Like, I've seen what you can do with water and something, water, a certain hardened level of metal, and sound frequency. It's not, I suppose, getting the refined metal. It's a question of, were we able to make iron ore into steel in the Paradise time? Was that within our power to do?
So now we are 89, and for 2 years, your Bock and the Positive Foundation, consisting of all these people supporting him, now the time is there that you all expect something big to happen, because there's big machines here, and you have uncovered part of something which could be an entrance to something.
Yeah. Yeah, we got specific information on how this temple was closed. The whole area has been looking very different here 1,000 years ago, and there is existing this mountain which, with this Etterstupa and the sundial rock, and the story tells of how we come from this mountain via one roadway down to the entrance of this temple. This roadway was blocked with stone slices. We took them up, we started to take them up 2 years ago in the summer. We took up the roadway last year. Also already 2 years ago we come to that point that we are down to the bedrock, and we found one big stone slice closing the entrance to the temple. So of course when we blew that one away, we were sure that now we can walk in just like that. But of course there was one other parallel shaped rock block behind the first one. So we were sure that when we blow that one away, we get in. No, still there was more stuff there. So we come to one granite room, which has one bedrock roof and one bedrock floor. And this granite room is filled with a kind of grey petrified mass, which they have been sealing the basic entrance of this temple with.
So what is unquestionable is that it's a megalithic thing, and that, you know, it's obviously some sort of it's like a vault of some sort, you know, maybe you could call it a, a tomb, perhaps. You know, there may be bodies in there. They may have, maybe they left a note in English. Imagine if they found a note in Old English, right? They said we better give you guys the low language first, otherwise you'll never believe it.
And now the story tells that from when we take out all this, we will come to one staircase that leads down to one round room, and this round room is full of water. They have made one water lock to hermetically seal this temple. So when we pump away the water from this round room, we will come to 3 corridors, the middle one of which we can walk up to the cupola of the temple, and the 2 on the sides which are used for air conditioning. And in that way we can then walk up to one metal door which is in front of the cupola to the temple, and from the cupola this temple is constructed cone form, in a form of a cone down into the earth, into the granite.
Wow, with how many more or less rooms?
I don't know, they say that there should be more rooms there for this Lemminkainen than there are people in Finland existing today. And there are about 5 million people here, so let's see. Yeah.
I have one more question, and that is, in this whole breathing system, it was very important that sperm from one particular person would get together with the egg cell of certain women. Do you think there is something set in history about this whole thing, or is it actually through the Bock saga for the first time that this information comes out?
That I am not sure about at all. There are probably existing different stories that when we really know about it, we probably suddenly realize, but here they are basically saying that, and here they are basically saying that, no? But it's because we don't live with this concept anymore that we don't become reminded about it. So it has been completely evaporated from the brain. It's not existing in our understanding of today. So it is really belonging to one period in the history about which we know very, very little. Because the Heathen time people were not writing, so we don't really know how these people lived in that time and on what principles and what understanding of nature they created their continuation.
Wow, it's beautiful information.
Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see.
Well, did it change your life to hear about this saga?
Yeah, it did in one form, because I could never imagine in my life that I'm starting to listen to some mythology of a human being on the planet that lived before ice time. And on what principles and system this whole thing was based. It was completely based on the nature. They took all their examples from the nature, something what we obviously don't do today anymore. We are not living anymore as part of the nature. Yeah, I could never imagine that. I could never imagine that before I start to listen to this Wijnen mythology. Yeah, it was not existing in my brain either, such an idea.
Do you think that people today, they can learn something from this saga?
Yeah, I think we can get one understanding about where we come from and who we are. And that's very important, I think.
How big do you see the percentage of reality in the saga? How much reality do you think it is?
I think it's 100% reality, because it is based on the nature and on one sound system that is still existing today on the planet. One language spoken here in Oedenma, which is based on these 29 sounds, from where they created this other language, which we call the Baan language, or Finnish language, which was before ice time spoken by all people on the planet. Now this.
I'm going to say right here that the way I would put it, from the manner in which things are perceived by me, is that 100% of the Bock saga is true, but it is not 100% of the truth. But I think we're looking at the largest percentile of any mythology.
This Baan language is based on the same sounds as the root language, but they are arranged in a different order, which make this Baan language to be much larger than this root language. Now, under the ice time, they created, we came into new circumstances on this planet. We get ice. Through that, we need also to get agriculture, which you didn't really need in the tropical time. We start to get all kinds of arctical domestic animals. So we get all kinds of new life form on the planet, for which they created one new language called the English language, which is a combination of this root and Baan language. Yeah, you can find it out when you get into the subject. So this whole story basically goes in the sounds of these three languages, root, Finnish and English, which still exist today. And when you go with the sound system into this language, you can make an enormous discovery about nature and the human being in the nature.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Yeah.
Well, after the interview with Michel, my head was spinning. It was not only the information I got from him, But also, I had a short talk with Mr. Bock. Also, I talked with a lot of people who were visiting him. I heard everybody talk about the temple and about this breathing system. And I just decided that I would like to find out what scientists think about this whole thing. I phoned the National Museum in Helsinki and I got time to have an interview with Mr. Thorsten Edgray, Director of the Archaeological Department. You have heard about the Bock saga as it is told by Mr. Bock. What is your opinion about this whole story?
Well, as far as I know, there is no reality in it at all. Because we have been told about Mr. Bock's ideas for many, many years about his excavations east of Helsinki, where he was trying to find the so-called Lemminkainen temple. But in my opinion, there is no reality in it at all.
The fact that this whole thing has started in a kind of paradise, which was located in Helsinki. Is there any proof that there was a tropical climate at any point here in this area?
Well, you can see from about 10,000 before present up to about 100,000 years ago, the whole Finland was covered by a very thick ice, as thick as the inland ice in Greenland for the moment.
Yeah. That was 10,000 years ago. That's all, I mentioned that earlier, that's all agreeable, like you could, you run that in Wikipedia, you run that through a competent large language model, aka AI, it's going to spew roughly the same information.
And it has destroyed every sign of so to say, tropical climate before that. There hasn't been any people at that moment in the whole country at all. So we don't have any proof of a tropical climate at all. And let's say 3,000 years ago, the whole Helsinki area was just underwater, starting to rise up from the Baltic.
Okay.
Okay, now 3,000 years ago, the area was underwater. This also makes sense because that would have been the freshwater pocket that created the Alt-La-Is.
This Lemminkainen is a figure which is known in the Scandinavian country as some mythological figure.
Well, perhaps not in the whole Scandinavia. We have this old Finnish folk poem, Kalevala, very well known, collected by Elias Lönnrot 150 years ago among people in the eastern part of Finland. It was an old oral tradition. And Lemminkainen is a very central hero in this poem. And so you can say that he's very well known in Finland. He has been studied by an artist, Sibelius, wrote some music which was devoted to Lemminkainen, and so on. So he's a very well-known person in Finland, but not in Scandinavia as far as I know, because the Scandinavian mythology is, so to say, Western Europe origin, but the Finnish Kalevala is just something extremely Finnish, typical Finnish poem.
In the story of Mr. Bock, this Lemminkind's main responsibility is...
Okay, so that right there is an interesting tell, right? It's that the Kalevala mythology itself, which is part of the Väinämöinen mythology, it doesn't go north, south, east, or west. It's just a finished thing. Just a finished thing.
To make sure that certain women would get pregnant in the right way with the right sperm line, as Mr. Bock calls it. Is there anything like that in this mythology also?
As far as I know, there isn't anything of such kind, but I must admit I'm not specialized in this Kalevala. I have heard about Kalevala, as I think most people in Finland already from the school. We have had been told of Lemminkainen and Väinämöinen and many other heroes from the Kalevala, but I haven't heard anything about that kind of that way to be pregnant, so to say.
The expectation of Mr. Bock is that there on Kumbostrand there is the entrance to this enormous temple which, according to him, got dug out in the granite. And he's speaking about a system of storage rooms in the order of 5 million different rooms. Would there be any possibility, say before Ice Age, that people went in there, made holes in the granite and stashed their valuables there?
No. It's just pure Finnish solid granite. And I must say already the figure about 5 million, you said, 5 million rooms, that's nonsense. Nonsense, pure nonsense.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Just a minute.
See, those answers are terrible. Like, oh no, it's just nonsense. It's just like, okay, fine, you go through the dismissal, but you see, it's an absence. He's saying, no, that's not correct, but he won't give you the framing of something more so. He's just leaving it to, your ordinary understanding of reality that you could look up from anybody other than me is exactly correct. I don't think so. Anyway.
No, my baby brothers made that up.
So we are standing here in front of Ertestupa.
I mean, like I've talked about this a million times, right? Like, that's one of those science guys saying, no, that's totally natural, effectively. Right? It's just like that guy is total, like that's a 1989 NPC gatekeeper, right? That's about as typical a NPC gatekeeper as you can ask for, right? And an NPC is still a human being with a fucking soul. I'm just saying somebody who just runs on base program for, interacting with people on a professional level, right? They, nobody has to show you who they are. Everybody can just fucking hide behind a veil of indifference. Right? Because you're just in a certain job that you like to do your thing. But anyway.
With Bibi.
Mm-hmm.
Bibi is a neighbor. She lives in the surrounding here. And I want to ask her a couple of questions. So, what do you think of this whole story, this Bock saga?
Oh, past these 3 years, I've been thinking this and that, and that's a big question. Is there anything, or is it just damage, nature damage?
Also, a guy like that you could think of him as kind of like the Hierophant, right? And I don't even mean the Hierophant reversed. I just mean the Hierophant, right? As far as your ordinary reality, baseline kind of socially acceptable, top of the notch way of life, right? You know, like these are the people that are the reason why technology goes into decline, because they lack imagination.
At this moment, I think it's just damage. The temple should be looked for inside you. It's not here. That's my...
So you think it's all nonsense and it's just
Well, it's not nonsense. It's searching for our roots and then the better living. Search for truth.
Do you give it any chance that there's something physical, like part of a temple or some kind of remnants of that old time?
I couldn't say. I couldn't really say. No, it's a lot of personal feelings too, because it's my neighborhood, my neighbors, and you know, it touched me.
According to this Bock saga, the origin of all people were one twin brother and sister, and they were Finnish.
No.
How would you feel about that?
No, my mind tells me it can't be. It can't be.
And this hidden mythology where the Bock saga talks about, did you hear that in any other way, ever in school or in another form?
Oh, sure. You've heard the sagas and from different mythologies and different national stories. Saga. We have a national saga, you could call it. It's the names are from there and some happenings, and you know, I think it's the saga is brought from all over the world into.
So, you know, there's going to be inherently this problematic fear that comes from there's all sorts of shifts in the psyche that shift power dynamics through the evolving awareness of the Bock saga amongst the Finnish people, because of how you know, they're trained to understand the Kalevala, right? And so if they can't get out of the mythological allegories, the fairy tale aspect of Kalevala, they're not going to be able to accept the Väinämöinen mythology.
To this Bock saga, this is what I think.
So what are you going to say if they indeed find something? Will you be happy? Or?
Well, I say wow.
Okay. Me too. I'm going to say wow. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. It's been the question all the time, you know, the past 3 years following this.
I think nobody had expected that this would be going down like this, huh?
Wow, when you think of it, when it started, a group of guys, I think there were 3, I went for my evening walk, coming down the road here from my house up there. And they came with small buckets and showers and told me this story. You know?
You could.
I was amazed, just looked at them, and we became friends, you know. People changed, and some of them been the same probably the time. But, you know. Then came the machines, and so they, I don't know, just thinking they began with showers, buckets, and now it's this big, 10 meters down. And
All right, so yeah, this is I think she's showing up at the Bock house to talk to Eeyore. So I'm going to call it right here, and then from here on, as you can see in the little screen right there, next show we'll go through and I'll try to do this whole thing in one swoop. As you can see, it's quite the dressed affair. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. It's been fun. I will get a hold of you, Zayla, in a little bit. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And stay tuned. I'm not sure how busy this week is going to be for me. So stay tuned. I may have a little bit more availability to do a little bit more online. I'll catch you guys later.